agreement between the DRC and Rwanda a meaningful step forward, or is it more diplomatic theatre?
I believe that this is a meaningful step forward in the sense for two reasons. The first is that peace is good irrespective of who brokers it and irrespective of the time that it comes. Number two, the DRC as well as Rwanda, they have been talking across each other, and this peace agreement is comprehensive enough to cater for the needs of the DRC as well as those for Rwanda. And thirdly, the fact that the peace agreement itself has put a framework for its implementation or a monitoring tool to ensure that it is implemented is one of the things which have not been so far explored.
Is there anything significantly different about this initiative? Because we've seen so many in the past that have failed to take hold, and some saying that it's difficult to understand how something brokered in Washington, D.C. might have effect in Africa. What's different about this round, do you think?
The first thing which is difficult about this round is that the DRC has finally acknowledged that the Rwanda's concerns about FDLR in the presence or in Eastern Congo is a threat to the stability of Rwanda, and that justifies to some extent why Rwanda has maintained some meaningful presence in Eastern Congo. To the extent that it is so, this peace agreement has made room for both countries, including with their partners, to work towards the complete demobilization or removal of the threat that FDLR poses as a precondition for Rwanda to actually quit the DRC. This framework has created a timeline of 3 months, dangerously so, because if in 3 months FDLR is not removed, then Rwanda's presence will remain justified.
All right. So how is it that M23 are the proponents against the DRC's national army, and yet they are not a signatory to this? Are we saying that the M23 is going to listen to Kigali and just lay down its arms?
And that's exactly one of the things, the missing pieces in this peace agreement. That while this peace agreement is celebrated, it's a political agreement which has missed a core part of it, which is actually engaging the military, the armed and the non-state armed groups. To the extent that it is so, these are going to continually feel like they are disenfranchised and that their issues have not been brought to the table, and they'll continue to pose as threats to this peace agreement. So I'm hoping that the framework for implementation is going to look into these and perhaps find means and ways to make sure that the threats that these cause and what actually fuels them can actually be suffocated once and for all.
Washington's ability to broker a deal here, and then we're hearing about mineral deals. Is the DRC selling itself for something?
The peace agreement which has been signed has nothing to it as far as minerals are concerned. I think that there's a possible second leg to this, whereby the United States would have access to the minerals. Perhaps that would be a measure in which the peace agreement is going to be enforced, and that's why I said at the beginning that peace is good irrespective of who brokers it or how it comes about. Now it's for the DRC to make sure that when they go into those rounds of negotiations or engagements, that they have the best people on the table and that their minerals are secured to the benefit of the Congolese people. Until then, it is premature to actually judge that the DRC has sold out its country or its minerals. After all, as they are right now, that's the source of a lot of illicit movement of Africa's wealth, and that is not accounted for. So this can provide the DRC a platform for accounting for its minerals that leave the country and for making some revenue out of it, then I think it is a positive step forward.
If that's the case, then help me understand why the DRC and Rwanda have not listened to the African Union and other regional bodies that have tried to broker peace. Why only listen to Washington?
Well, because Washington, on the one hand, has some comes with a carrot and a stick. So that's what the African Union has not come with. The African Union doesn't have a clear implementation mechanism. The Washington brought to bear a clear implementation mechanism. Washington has a great relationship with both Rwanda and with the DRC. And to the extent that these two warring parties had also gotten exhausted of fighting and the counter accusations of one another, had created a situation where they were not able to listen to each other when the African Union tried to broker the peace. But the African Union did try, and we need to acknowledge that the fact that the African Union actually reached out, including amongst others, to M23, is one of the steps which is going to help to secure this peace agreement and to make this peace agreement sustainable.
How much do we know about this agreement? I mean, what happens now? Does the M23 withdraw to somewhere? Because the original issue was their integration into the National Army of the DRC.
And that's what we hope that the implementation arm of this peace agreement is going to look into, and that the consultations which are going to happen with both the DRC and both Rwanda will perhaps look into those issues, including ensuring, as the parties have agreed, that they are going to stop supporting different armed groups. That if Rwanda stops supporting M23 and the DRC stops supporting FDLR, that somewhere they are going to suffocate the existence of these groups, and that perhaps FDLR or M23 will come to the table and form and get some kind of amnesty, which will lead to their reintegration to the respective armies that they so seek to join.
Who's going to ensure compliance of this agreement and future steps that are agreed?
The compliance of this peace agreement is going to be overseen by the United States, and it's going to put into place a team that constitutes both Rwandese, the Congolese, and some people dignitaries from the African continent.
And again, they'll only listen because of the carrots that are dangled.
Well, it's not just the carrots. In any peace agreement, the sustainability is hinged on a complexity of a number of factors. One is the willingness of the parties to actually go to the table, to listen to one another. That's something which has been missing all along. The DRC has gone to the table together with Rwanda, and they've exchanged words, they've exchanged, there's not been any consensus of the mind. That's what they have actually gained here. So it's not necessarily the carrot. Two is the fatigue of fighting and the counter accusations, which has gotten to the point where the DRC is accusing Rwanda, the United Nations now accusing Rwanda. So Rwanda gets to a point where anything possible to sanitize its image is important. So yes, there's the aspect that the United States brings the possible threat, but which threat can only go as far as the parties have actually allowed themselves to sit around the negotiation table. Because no, Rwanda could refuse that they are not going to Washington. But Rwanda did go to Washington. Rwanda did sign this agreement, satisfied that the FDLR component, which they have constantly said FDLR poses a threat to its security, and that FDLR is supported by the DRC, that no one has listened to it. For once, Washington listened to it, and it is in the peace agreement that both parties are going to work towards the elimination of the threat that the FDLR poses, and this is going to lead to Rwanda's unconditional withdrawal.
All right, and very briefly, because we're running out of time, where does this leave the African Union and SADC and other regional bodies, particularly the EAC, that have tried to intervene? Do they just step back and watch this process carry on with the US leading it?
As long as this is going to bring peace, then that's what is going to happen. Where the African Union is needed, they're going to intervene. The African Union has done significant work ahead of this process, and I think that the meeting at the White House actually acknowledged the fact that that has been done. The president of Angola is going to be invited at the next rounds when Kagame and Tshisekedi meet in Washington, and all of these are going to be acknowledged as steps which have led to the successful signing of this peace agreement. So the African Union has done work or building blocks towards this peace agreement. It just needed the finishing, and the United States has done that.
All right, and one final question. Everyone's talking about DRC and Rwanda as the main protagonists here, but other countries in the region have been involved there or thereabouts, and the M23 are not the only rebels in the east. How are all these other players going to be dealt with beyond M23, DRC and Rwanda?
Hopefully, when the implementation mechanism is put in place, it's going to look at all of these things, because implementation will be both a technical team and a political team that will constantly bring issues that threaten the peace agreement to the respective actors, including to the convener of the peace agreement, and these issues will be dealt with piecemeal by piecemeal.
Dr. Nyuykonge, we're going to have to leave it there. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed. Your insights greatly appreciated on the program.
Thank you, Peter. Have a good day.
Thank you very much indeed. So that's Dr. Charles Nyuykonge, Africa analyst and conflict resolution expert, sharing his thoughts on this US brokered peace deal between DRC and Rwanda. I don't know what to make of this, Asanda, but we'll have to wait and see if it holds. But peace, whoever brings it, I suppose, deserves recognition.
Absolutely. As your guest was saying there, peace, whenever it comes and however it comes, is always welcomed. We'll have to see that story as it continues to unfold. In this next hour, the final hour of Africa Rise and Shine, we go to Togo, where at least 7 people were killed and many others wounded during anti-government protests in the capital, Lomé.
Right now, though, it's time for your news, and that'll be followed by sports headlines with Onele Nsitsi and Rachel Makura.
SABC News.